So I've always thought of myself as doing nanoeconomics, phrase that Hal just used, because I'm really interested in what individual decision making looks like, and one of the things that's exciting about the internet is the way that it makes experiments more likely, and Hal also has referred to that. So he's done a great job on my introduction. And the question that I want to talk about is online display advertising. And you'll see that the title I've chosen for my talk is, Does Retail Advertising Work? We have this exciting opportunity now to measure the impact of advertising in a way that's never been able to be done before in traditional media, but we can do it on a much bigger scale online. So I want to talk about the kind of exciting stuff that we're doing at Yahoo Research. Preview of the results of our large-scale experiment. We have an advertising campaign that increased sales by about 5% for a major department store retailer for those that were treated with ads compared to those who were in the control group. This more than pays for the cost of the ads, so we're happy about that. In this particular case, the advertiser actually is demonstrably getting value for what they're spending. The online ads affect not just online sales, but also offline sales. In fact, 93% of the effect that we find is in brick and mortar stores. And this is a bit of a surprise for some people who have gotten used to thinking of online advertising being for online transactions. But there's no reason in principle why, if TV advertising and newspaper advertising can drive people to be interested in purchasing in stores, why that can't happen with online advertising as well. And then finally, the online ads have a large impact on purchases for those who merely view the ads, not just the people who click. So one of the great things about online advertising is that we have this automatic measure of success. If somebody clicks on the ad, that must mean that they were interested. But that doesn't mean that you're capturing everybody who was interested or influenced, right? Nobody clicks on a television ad, nobody clicks on a magazine ad, and yet we think that they might have an impact on the way people think. So in fact here, 78% of the effect that we estimate comes from non-clicking viewers of the ads. So my favorite quote is from John Wanamaker, who was a retailing pioneer in the 1800s, who said, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half." And this is, I think, generally still true. It's very difficult to use existing data to figure out what is advertising doing. And so we're making some innovations in how that, in that area to try to find the missing half, the wasted half. I claim that advertisers do not have good measures of the effects of brand image advertising. And to illustrate, let me talk about a Harvard Business Review article published in 2008 that illustrates the state of the art in advertising measurement. The study was done by ComScore, which is a huge internet data firm with a panel of over 1 million consumers who have agreed to let ComScore watch everything they do online. Majid Abraham, who wrote the article, says it's a simple methodology. We compare those people who saw an ad. Let's say we're studying, Coca-Cola. We take those people who, actually, let's say Land's End. Take those people who saw the ad for Land's End, compare to the people who didn't see the ad for Land's End, see how much people purchased at Land's End through clever things like scraping your credit card statement whenever you open up your credit card page and you're on the ComScore panel. So it's clever research, but the problem is, and they conclude that online advertising has a really huge impact. For example, while display advertising on average had a 20% increase in sales, search advertising had a 300% increase in sales. And I say, well, wait a minute. Who are the populations that we're studying here? There was no experiment deliberately run. We just take the people who saw a given ad and compare them to people who didn't see the given ad. Are they the same population? Would their behavior be the same if none of them were seeing the ad? And I think the answer is no. So to illustrate this really sharply, suppose we're studying how much increase in sales does E-Trade get whenever they advertise on Google. So who sees that ad? Well, the people who see the ad for E-Trade are the people who typed online brokerage into the Google search engine. And the people who don't see it are the people who didn't type in online brokerage to the Google search engine. Now, Do we think that the people who type online brokerage into Google are exactly as likely to sign up for any trade account as the people who are not typing that in? I don't think so. I mean, even if we turned off the ad, you're going to find a difference between those two groups. And we don't want to attribute that difference to the ad when it's really due to differences in population. So the way to fix this is to run an experiment. Say, okay, well, half the people who come to Google are going to see the E-Trade ad when they type in online brokerage, and half of them are not, and then we can compare those people. Now we know that they're the same population. So that's the business that I'm in, and the key thing to remember that everybody learns in statistics class, and it's so hard to remember in actual practice, is that correlation and causality are not the same thing, it's really important to have the ceteris paribus assumption between the two groups of people that you're comparing. Everything else has to be constant. They have to be from the same population. Okay, so this is difficult for economists as well as practitioners. Classic technique is to run a regression of sales on advertising. Practitioners call this marketing mix modeling. I caution people to shy away from mindless marketing mix modeling. And for those of you who've taken econometrics, the advertising sales problem is literally a textbook example of the endogeneity problem in econometrics. Ernie Brent's textbook spends chapter 8 explaining endogeneity through examples with advertising and sales. And so, for example, what can happen is you plot advertising and sales, and you see a curve that goes up. We estimate the slope of this curve through an econometric regression. And then we say, okay, well, here's how advertising influences sales. And then afterwards, you ask the manager, how did you determine your advertising? And they say, oh, well, we set it as 10% of our sales budget. So it's actually the sales that cause the advertising, not the advertising that cause the sales, right? So there are all kinds of things that can go wrong in establishing causality. And again, I want to return to doing an experiment. My favorite story along these lines are that some of my colleagues went and talked to a major electronics retailer and said, we'd like to help you do experiments to help you measure the impact of advertising on sales. And they said, oh, we already know the effects of advertising on sales. And my friends said, oh, cool, how do you know it? And they said, well, we ran a regression. Okay, knowing that means they plotted advertising versus sales and computed the slope of the line. So the key thing to wonder is, how did the advertising vary? Who saw the advertising, who didn't? How did it vary by region? Did it vary over time? And they said, well, gee, we always advertise the same amount. To which my friend said, then you're only going to get 1 point on the graph, and I can draw you an infinite number of lines through a single point. So how do you get the slope of the line unless the advertising varies? And they said, oh, yeah, okay, fine. We always advertise more in December than we do every other time of the year.